On this episode of Reviews Nobody Asked For, we have the Orange80 from Vox, who is also responsible for stuff like the Time 80. This board is from 2017, which for context also features stuff like the Moon, Tina, Accent, and the KBD75. This was right around the time when I started getting interested in keyboards. The design of the Orange is distinct. The gigantic forehead combined with the rounded bezels and corners is closely reminiscent of the first generation of real force keyboards. The fillet around the top bezel is repeated on the bottom side, which when combined with the absence of incline creates a really cool shadow under certain lighting conditions. These fillets aren't deep enough to reach the edges of the case, so the mating portion is flat. I can't find pictures anymore, but the original design incorporated a pronounced seam here, but I think I like it without. The USB port cutout isn't the best, but I do appreciate the top and bottom symmetry from the seam. With the cable I'm using, I see the shielding peek out a little bit. The badge on the upper left corner is honestly a bit of an eyesore. On mine, the chosen color isn't a great match, so maybe more tasteful combinations are okay, but I would have preferred nothing there. On the bottom is the 9-piece accent of the board's namesake, though some interpret it as a pizza. This is one of my favorite accent designs in any board, and I wish I had a couple different colors to play with. The layout is a regular TKL with a somewhat unusual twist. Affectionately and derisively called China blocker, the bottom row has two 0.625U blockers that make the 1.25U and the 6.25U combination symmetrical. The color on this guy is micro arc oxidation, or MAO. From my memory, this was one of the first boards to offer it. It was often advertised as a white, but it's clearly not, especially when compared to something that's actually white like E-white. It's a very light gray. I don't think it looks bad, but most people made color combinations on the assumption that it would be pure white, so the combos that exist out there are not that great. For example, the blue on this orange or the black on my E6 V2. Colors aside, I enjoy the design of the board. It's really nothing like anything else I own. It's not very often that in a hobby dominated by manly men that cold hard rectangles explore these softer designs. I don't think my colors do it much justice though. I would really like to get a citrus theme going with maybe orange on the outside and red on the accents. Even though my configuration has no brass parts, the board feels fairly dense. Besides, since the accents are small pieces, I don't think brass would make a large difference anyway. With the rounded edges, it's just a joy to pick up and handle. Due to the depth, you probably won't be able to do it one-handed, but the lack of angle makes picking it up by the arrow cluster extra easy. You can take the board apart with 8 screws on the bottom. I bought this secondhand, so I don't know for sure if these are original, but the screws are countersunk while the holes are counterbore. Not really sure what that's about. The fit between the top and bottom pieces are super tight on mine. I believe MAO adds some amount of thickness, so this might not be an issue for anodized finishes. First taking a look at the cases, the bottom is largely straightforward as a flat tray, except for the support for the accents. Each one of the pieces you see outside is separate. They could have gone with a single piece that connected from the inside, but this allows for multiple colors, which I think is neat. The top is a little more complicated. Unlike some other TKLs, the large bezel means a fairly weighty piece. The plate is top mounted at 8 points with seemingly no real thought given to their location. The screws here are once again countersunk for a flat surface. 2 long screws connect the badge to the top, and for the first time on this board uses countersunk screws for countersunk holes. Moving on to the PCB, the age is unmistakable. The Bootmapper client-enabled PCB sports an AppMega32A and has one of these long appendages to get through the tall forehead. My board has a shorting issue where it'll register multiple keystrokes. I resolved it by putting pieces of paper underneath the PCB. When checked for continuity, the mouse surface is actually non-conductive, but I'm guessing the coating is so weak that some of the switch pins are piercing through it. So the obvious conclusion here is that there is almost no space underneath the PCB on this board, which could have implications for flexible plates. With all that out of the way, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the MAO finish. I didn't buy this new, so you can't blame everything on me, but it's such a fragile surface. It's entirely unsuitable for something that gets handled as often as a keyboard. Throughout the board, inside and out, there are countless blemishes, marks, and scratches. The surface also has a fabric-like feel to it, and surprisingly, it'll get kind of wet from oily stuff like lube. You can see the spot left by whatever I dropped on the top. At a TKL size, the board is pretty wide, and I think I'd end up with a lot of marks on the right side from my mouse bumping into it. This color is also pretty hard to match key sets with. I think you'd probably want something desaturated, but most pastel sets end up turning out too bright. So those are some of the reasons why this kind of finish fell out of favor pretty quickly after it was introduced. The super matte texture is cool, but I don't think it's worth all the hassle. Even for its age, the board's construction doesn't seem all that outdated. If anything, the tight-fitting connection between the top and bottom pieces are an improvement over boards with no alignment pins whatsoever. But elsewhere, it's a good demonstration of some of the areas that we made some progress in. My newer boards all have tighter USB ports, some have more thought put into plate mounting locations, and very surprisingly, my newest board doesn't disconnect momentarily from static shock. The Orange80's typing experience is on the stiff side. Of course, top-mount aluminum plates will be stiff, but I suspect that the switch pins making contact with the bottom case contributes more to it, just like it did for my Noxery T60. I was hoping I could say this is sort of the standard mount and plate for a TKL that survived the test of time, but this clearance issue means that this isn't a representative sample of a top-mount aluminum plate TKL. It'll still be a while for me before I'll get to try one of those. While stiff feels aren't unusual, the sound here certainly is. This is one of the hollowest sounding metal keyboards I've ever used. The expected sound from a dense aluminum keyboard would be muted, but this one just sounds like a plastic case. As mentioned before, there's not really any room under the PCB, so sound dampening is out of the question. You're going to have this sound, and there's nothing you can do about it. There are some pretty old customs out there that are highly desirable. Clearly, this is not one of them. Seeing as how this probably won't be run ever again, this video is really not very useful as a review, but as a look into what customs were like when the hobby was a bit more sleepy. In some ways, we definitely have it better. Firstly, there are a lot more options, so even if you weren't able to get into a group buy, there's probably going to be something else that catches your eye. We also have greater collective knowledge about what matters in a keyboard. Creative and attractive designs are still key, but there's some more attention to detail with stuff like mount locations, plate materials, and things like daughterboards. But in other ways, the Orange80 is a testament to how keyboard innovation happens gradually. Even though new boards have advantages over this, they're not so fundamentally different. A common thing I see is that when a new board comes out, it'll try one new thing. The round 2 of Time 80 tried a plate split across the middle, the Thermal tried a leaf spring, and the E6.5 tried putting a rubber band around the PCB. Some of these work, some of these don't, and with each new thing, we collectively get just a little better at keyboards. If you were to ask an outsider to try this versus an 8X Mark II, they probably won't notice much, but to an enthusiast, it'll be a big difference in both feel, sound, and quality of life features. But what I want you to take away from this is that the shiny new keyboard that you couldn't get into is probably not groundbreaking. It's likely a small iteration on the body of existing knowledge. So just to remind you all of the bigger picture, if you're unironically getting mad because you couldn't get into Iron 165, a number 2, or a Jane, take 2 steps back and take my word for it when I say most keyboards are the same.